Seven, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
Welcome into another edition of the Vegas Squares podcast. We're sitting here in our virtual studios for another quarantined edition of the Vegas Squares. I have Spike on mic 2 and Token Tony back on mic number 3. What's up, gentlemen?
Hey, what's going on?
Hey.
Cool. In-depth analysis. Solid.
A lot of walking around lately.
We are just scumbags. And this is my 7th on-camera meeting today, so I'm a little punch drunk because of it.
Yeah, I mean, you don't look any worse than you normally do, so you can get through
It's
them.
a little sweaty over here.
Ew.
Okay. Well, I decided today to wear my Houston Texans hat because in honor of the NFL schedule released, I figured what better time with all of the bullshit and craziness that's going on in the world to symbolize it with one NFL franchise that is the epitome of crazy and bullshit right now in the Houston Texans.
I agree.
That
might be one of the biggest dumpster fire teams possibly this year compared to last year.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's thank the sponsors here before we dive in. We are going to talk, obviously, some NFL schedule and week 1 lines because we are degenerate gamblers. And Token Tony needs any and every reason to refund his account.
Absolutely.
I hate to admit it.
Answer.
I hate to admit it, but I do too, because I just dumped everything that I had on here on one futures win total bet, which we can get into in a minute.
All right, fair enough. All right, again, let's thank the sponsors. First and foremost, 12-Ounce Sports Radio, where you can catch us all the time at 12ozsports.com. I'll cut that out. Where you can catch us at 12ozsportsradio.com. And, of course, Seat Giant, promo code 12-Ounce Sports for your discounted sporting events, concerts, and theater tickets. Fat T's Barbecue. If you're located in the Albuquerque area, give them a check out at Fat T's Barbecue. They got a mobile trailer set up over there in Albuquerque. Also, check them out online at fatteesfood.com. And one we kind of forget to throw in there, but they're on our website, chaipoker.net, who obviously is a big supporter of us, made a donation in our name today to Opportunity Village for $100. So
Hey.
Thank you very much to Ben and the staff over at Chai Poker.
Thank you, Ben and Chai,
for that awesome display of charity in our name. So kudos and thank you. All right, boys, NFL season is the only one that's really given us newsworthy stories of the Big Four. Everything else is a bunch of what ifs, and you know, a lot of these writers are grasping at anything that leaks out of the other three. But the NFL is proceeding, you know, as planned. And today we got the NFL schedule as if it were to happen on time.
Yeah, and I think that we are in a state where anything past the summer, they're going to plan for it being on time. It looks like with the COVID-19 cases, new cases are on the downward slope, new deaths, new hospitalizations are on the downward slope. So it looks like, not to say that it's under control, not to say that it's cured by any stretch, but we're at a point where I think people are willing to get back to normalcy because it is, contains not the right word, but it is
minimizing.
Yeah, it's minimizing. It's becoming, more of a background noise than an actual threat anymore at this point.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, like I said, you know, the great thing about the NFL that they've had is the fact that they're not in any kind of start of the season, middle of the season. There's no threat. I mean, they were able to do the draft virtually, which had a couple hiccups, but all things considered, I would say fired on all cylinders pretty well. You know, nothing really about the COVID virus has affected the NFL, and the NFL schedule now, with everyone mostly being at home, I was surprised to see, and apparently I was told that to some people this is huge every year, but I was surprised to see how much people were salivating in anticipation for this NFL schedule release. The reason I thought it was weird this year of all years is most of the time I would assume people who are anticipating this release are doing so because they're making travel plans to these games. Now they still may be doing that, but I mean, the fear of the unknown, I would have imagined probably put a hiccup in this.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. I mean, who knows if they'll even have fans in attendance, and if so, how much of percent are they going to allow when week one does happen? Hopefully, it does happen on time, but who really knows the story?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. If the season starts on time, great. But you're right. Are we going to have 65,000 seats filled every week? Or are we going to have 50% of that? Are we going to have 20% of that? There's so many questions to be asked, but just taking the sports on the field right now, what are your guys' initial thoughts, and how have you reacted to this in prior years when the NFL schedule is released? I'll tell you mine personally. I've never sat and waited on bated breath for ESPN to release it like they do the college basketball bracket or things like that. But this year, I found myself not watching it intently, but the minute it came out, I started analyzing the schedule, and I've never done that before.
I mean, it seems like we have nothing better to do at this point.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking too, is that it's, there's not much else going on aside from the Korean baseball that ESPN is trying
Which
to
is
force
awesome,
down
by
us
the
now.
way.
I haven't watched any yet.
I will say, not Korean, but I did go to a baseball game in Japan, and it was the loudest sporting event I had ever been to before the Golden Knights games, and that stadium was only at about 75% capacity.
Also,
crazy.
speaking of Asian League Baseball, I don't know if you guys have seen this. Manny Ramirez is playing in Taiwan right now at 48 years old.
Is he really? Nice.
That's pretty awesome.
Manny being Manny, I love it.
So,
do you think Big Papi joins him?
No. I think Papi didn't blow his money like Manny did.
That's true.
I think he's okay right now. And he's probably still in shape to get an MLB deal. I can't imagine Manny Ramirez is. He wasn't in shape in his prime.
Yeah.
So anyways, side note, check out Korean baseball if you can. If only for the bat flips, I'm entertained enough. I mean, these guys are super entertaining. So, and you can bet on it. I don't know what I'm betting on. I mean, specifically with the teams or the players, but
you're probably picking a team name and going with it.
Yeah, that's about all you can do, especially if you don't, speak the language or know what the logos mean or anything else.
It's true. And
I did see a New Jersey bettor hit like a 16 parlay or something on all overs yesterday or the day before for $50 to like 2,000 or something.
Plus, they have cardboard cutouts in the stands of people, of fans.
Yeah,
it's fantastic, and they're going to start letting fans in. I mean, I know that's
fantastic.
You should wear the Texans hat, you clusterfuck.
Yeah, I would have last year for sure. I was all over them.
So with the NFL schedule comes week one lines, and we'll discuss what I mean, as a Lions fan token, you're getting Matt Stafford back from a year where I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys started like 3-0-1.
Something like that. Yeah, I believe.
Or 2-0-1 or something like that, and lost like
something like
14 games or 12 games in a row.
Hey, my under was good.
Yes, it was very good. But as a Lions fan, is there a renewed sense of optimism, pessimism, or what do you guys expect going into a season? Because help us out here as Pats fans. I don't know what to expect because Spike believes in a tank. I believe if Stidham's the guy, they could win the AFC East again. If he's not the guy, I still think they're 6-10 at worst. What is it like to have just a renewed sense of what to follow?
In my opinion, it can't be worse than last year. I'm guessing right around.
Well, it can. You've had an 0-16.
Oh yeah, but realistically, I don't see us having worse than 4 wins this year. So.
Yeah, I mean, Patricia, I would assume, is coaching for his job at this point. Lions.
Yeah, I mean, and it could be jeopardy week to week, in my opinion.
Spike, this is an unprecedented time, and you're the last generation of Patriots football. You know, what's keeping you excited going forward? I mean, knowing, especially you, thinking that the team is going to tank.
Yeah, well, and that's kind of what I'm looking forward to seeing the new look Patriots. Obviously, with Brady gone, they did a slight, a minor uniform change, which is nothing of significance, but it's
I would hope
interesting.
Quite a bit of teams actually did that, so.
Yeah, but it makes sense because it's been, essentially the year before Brady came into the league, they changed from those rather hideous, pure 90s jerseys that they had for a while.
I remember those.
To the ones that they've been wearing for, Brady's entire tenure. So now that he's gone, it makes sense to switch it up, put a different look out there because they are the new look Patriots. They're moving forward in more ways than one, and I understand it. So, I think moving forward with Stidham, I'm going to sound crazy saying this, but I don't think the Patriots can lose even if they lose. So if they go out there and they win and they have a good season, then all of a sudden it strengthens Belichick's argument for being the best coach of all time. It throws a monkey wrench into the AFC East because everybody's crowning Buffalo already. And then you have a fight between New York and Miami at the 2 seed, and then New England promptly bringing up the rear. If New England goes out there and plays spoiler and starts screwing some things up, then I think that that's going to be fun for New England fans. Even if they go 6-10, if all 6 of those wins come in the division, I think people are going to be pretty happy with it. Or they go 0-16, they do nothing, and then they get the number 1 pick, and all of a sudden Trevor Lawrence comes up on that draft board. That's exactly what I want to see. So, I mean, the only way they really, really, really can fuck themselves over here is if they go 9-7, miss the playoffs, and get a shitty draft
and get the 18th pick or something that.
That would be a worst case scenario.
Yeah, I mean, the Patriots are obviously playing a first place schedule minus their superstar quarterback. I mean, you look up and down the schedule. I don't want to dissect it in full. And if Jarrett Stidham let's just take Jarrett Stidham at average. Let's say that Jets debacle last year where he threw 2 picks to the other team that got returned for touchdowns. Let's just say that's an anomaly and he's an average quarterback. I don't really know having a comparison right now. Let's just say he's Derek Carr. And I only see for sure wins, and there's a lot of factors with it, in the Dolphins and maybe one of the Jets games at home, the home Jets game. Everything else is pretty tough. I mean, getting the Raiders and the Broncos early, having to travel across the country might be tough for those teams. The defense is really the only thing I can imagine that's going to keep the Patriots in games. I'm not sure if the offense wasn't a huge juggernaut last year, and even if, let's say, Stidham plays exactly like Brady does, I mean, they're not going 12-4 next year.
No. They've lost too much on the offensive line. They lost too much in the defensive front seven. And, having Stidham try to get in rhythm with guys like Edelman and N'Keal Harry and whoever else may be trying to catch balls for them, it's not a great scenario.
Yeah, and the worst part is, Token, that Vegas has the win total for the Patriots at exactly 9.
Yes, they do.
And I love the under, but something just I would have had 7.5 at this.
I think 9 is a good analysis. I would, if I had to set it myself, I would probably put it at 8.5 with the hook, just because I think you get still both equal money on both sides.
I mean, their home games, a lot of their tough games are on the road. They play the Chiefs on the road. They play the Seahawks on the road. They play the Texans on the road. They play the Chargers on the road. They play the Rams on the road. I mean, the only home games that they actually have a chance with tough teams is the 49ers and the Ravens. And I mean, we saw how the Ravens took them to behind the woodshed last year.
Yeah.
If they're not absolutely tanking, they're actually competing. Spike, I see 5-11 this year at best.
Yeah,
I could be completely wrong. I don't see double-digit wins in this team.
No,
I definitely don't.
And that's why, like I was saying, I emptied out the William Hill account on under 9 wins for the Patriots. Even at minus 125, that's free money.
Well, plus you're also invested in them making 0 wins as well.
Well, I am, but realistically, like like you said, Miami's, the Jets, maybe the Cardinals. Who else is a win on the schedule? Maybe Denver?
Well, that was always the thing, It was who else is a 50-50 game.
Maybe Buffalo.
No.
And again, Stidham is such an unknown.
Not even at home.
No.
Stidham is such an unknown with this. I mean, if he comes out and plays like Tom Brady did before, as far as, even at a level, not for the longevity, but even at a level that he played on years they were making, postseason divisional appearances, they could be fantastic. And this guy could be set up for the next 15 years with him and McDaniels or him and Belichick. But I don't know. I mean, it's hard.
It's tough to imagine that.
It's tough to imagine that. You're right. The Dolphins is the only – because, again, I think they can beat them with Fitzpatrick, despite the fact that they don't generally do well against the Dolphins. And the Dolphins walked up to Foxborough and beat them last year to kind of put a wrinkle in things and maybe end the dynasty at that point. Depending on that home field advantage that bye they should have gotten in the playoffs last year. But I used to look at Patriot schedules and try to find the 50-50 games.
Yeah.
I think they're either all 50-50 games or worse. I mean, if Tyrod Taylor's playing well and they stay healthy, I don't see them walking in there and beating the Chargers. I think the Chargers are going to be a much improved team this year. And again, health is key for that team. But again, I think they're the inferior opponent. I'm curious. I know that the NFL or Westgate tries to handicap the whole year, but I mean they've got Miami or they've got New England as a 5.5-point favorite, 6.5-point favorite at Westgate here in week 1. But I don't see even at home the Patriots being favored in a ton of games.
I can't imagine how they would be. I mean, the home slate is rough. Even ending the season 2 games at home, they're against Buffalo and the Jets. So, that's tough. But Miami, that's, we'll see what happens there.
I see them favored in 5 home games.
I mean, the Raiders had a much improved draft. Denver, if
they'll be favored against the Raiders. They'll be favored.
If Denver can figure out what to do at quarterback, then they might be a decent team. San Francisco, they're going to run over New England. Baltimore is going to run over New England. Arizona, maybe they can, put up a fight. I don't know what they're going to do in Arizona. I have no idea what to make of that team. And then Buffalo and the Jets. Like, it's just
Arizona kind of reminds me of what potentially people thought of Cleveland last year. Like one of those good-looking teams that could do really well, but maybe not on quite that level that Cleveland was last year.
Yeah, I was going to say, I haven't heard too much hype about Arizona this year. Not to say that it's not coming. I mean, it's early yet. But
I mean, on paper, they're definitely improved, especially with DeAndre Hopkins, drafting Isaiah Simmons, another year with Kyler Murray. I mean,
Fitzgerald.
Yeah, the question is that at running back, can Kenyon Drake continue what he did the last, second half of the season there?
And stay healthy.
Yeah, well, that was the issue with David Johnson. So.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I realistically, and again, I'm not a Vegas line odds maker, but barring any injury, let's just, take this as a utopian NFL season with no injuries.
Mm-hmm.
I see the Patriots maybe being favored in 6 to 7 games. Most of them being at home. The only home game or the only road game I see them being favored in is probably the game in Miami. And maybe, who knows, Tua may be starting by that time. He may be lighting the world on fire at that point too. But again, all things being equal with no injuries, I'll say 6 games I would even consider favoring them. And that's based on what do the Raiders look like in week 3 and what do the Broncos look like in week 5. Because otherwise it could be 4 games that they're favored in. Because if the Broncos, like you said, the Broncos, Drew Lock progresses and they're hot out of the gate, they may get a road favorite right there. They got a good team.
Yeah.
and they're not catching the Patriots, up in the nasty conditions just yet because it's only October. But yeah, I see 5-6 games. I mean, like I said, 1 road game and maybe 5 home games. And they may get some lines just for the sake of who they are too. So
Yeah, it could be Belichick against a young coach, and who knows. But yeah, I don't see this team doing all that well, which is exactly what I want to have happen, but who knows.
Yeah, it's just got to be tough. I mean, like I said, that's why I kind of wanted to get Token's perspective of it. I mean, there's a difference between, an optimism-fueled season where it kind of goes off the rails and a season where – because there was a lot of people, even despite the 4-0 preseason, Token, that expected that Lions team to be terrible.
Oh, yeah, I know.
So there's a difference between Spike, who goes in wanting to lose, all things considered.
Yeah.
And when that happens, you meet expectation. But there's people probably like myself who, for New England, that, have a shred of belief in that Jarrett Stidham can be molded by this coaching staff. And there was a reason that they took him, and they could be competitive at 8-8. But that's the question, if you want to tank, is the only person you're tanking for Trevor Lawrence? I mean, I would imagine. So if you don't want to tank, if you don't want Trevor Lawrence, if you're not a Trevor Lawrence fan, which I am, is 8-8 okay? I mean, because you're not used to it, but at the same time, you weren't as terrible as you thought you might be.
Yeah. I think it's like bittersweet, like where you don't get one of those top draft picks, but you still can get a good one. And I mean, it gives you some glimmer of hope in the future and all that. And team morale is probably still pretty good at that point.
Well, and that's the question, Spike. What if you, try to tank unsuccessfully like the Dolphins did, even though they got their guy theoretically in Tua Tagovailoa? What if you end up with the 4th pick? And, what's another glaring need on the Patriots? If Stidham fails, obviously quarterback, but I mean, the defense is solid. They lost Jamie Collins. They lost a few other players. But, glaring need. If the wide receivers develop this year, I mean, you got Sony Michel.
You can make an argument for either wide receiver or super skilled tight end if there's somebody out there that makes a lot of sense. But
maybe some offensive linemen even.
Yeah, well, no, I think – I mean, they did lose offensive line, but I think
if you're tanking for an O lineman, then
free agency, that doesn't.
Yeah,
make
it's
sense,
pretty tough to justify, but
I think
there's been 2 or 3 number 1 picks in the offensive line.
I think if there's something that they can go after where they lost a lot of players, it might be edge rusher or some kind of defensive lineman. Even though Belichick has never wanted to pay for sacks because nobody is ever going to be as good as Lawrence Taylor, so why try? So he doesn't pay for that kind of thing, and when guys, make a name for themselves, he'll either trade them or let them go in free agency, like Richard Seymour or Chandler Jones or any guys like that. So that kind of thing wouldn't surprise me if they don't go after Trevor Lawrence. This might be a situation, one of the very, very, very rare times where if Belichick really wants Trevor Lawrence, then he may try to trade up and grab Trevor Lawrence.
He's not getting the number 1 pick.
Think about how many draft picks the Patriots get every single year because of other deals that they have made in other drafts. There was an Onion headline a while ago that said, walking into the 2025 draft, the Patriots have every
12.
single pick in the 2025 draft. So
I think they probably already have 12 or something.
Correct, but I'll rebut you with 2 things. One, if you believe Trevor Lawrence is like Joe Burrow, and if you're a team that's in desperate need of a quarterback, you're not going off the number 1 pick. You're taking Trevor Lawrence. And 2, you do not want to be the GM that puts Trevor Lawrence in Bill Belichick's lap.
I agree with you on number 2. I think –
And I could think of one team that would do that, and that'd be the Lions.
The only thing I can see doing that is if Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia are about to get canned, Spike, and they're like, you know what? Fuck it. Let's trade it, everything we have to Belichick, because he's going to give us our jobs back.
Potentially. I think it would also depend on the quarterback class. If, maybe there's not another Trevor Lawrence out there, but if there's a guy that you think can be a decent starter for you and you can get him at the number 3, 4, 5 pick, whatever it is the Patriots have, and get like another number 1, a couple of number 2s, and like a number 5 or whatever the package is that the Patriots have to put together to move up the 3, 4, 5 spots to get to number 1, I think that's a hard sell to not grab that.
Potentially.
As important as quarterbacks are, as it's the most important position on the field, it's the leader and everything else. If you see somebody that isn't Trevor Lawrence, but is somebody that you can see being a decent to good to really good starter in the NFL, and you're not only going to be able to get him, but you're going to be able to put weapons around him or put up, good offensive linemen or get other picks to build a team around this guy, I think you have to seriously consider trading that pick.
Well, then, Spike, I will challenge you this year to watch college football, specifically watch Justin Fields at Ohio State.
Justin Fields at Ohio State. All right, I will watch college football this year just for you.
Because that is probably the number 2 guy who also, if Trevor Lawrence, anything happens like Tua this year, Justin Fields could be that Joe Burrow of this year as well. Already a solid quarterback, but has the ability to have a leap, a Burrow-esque type leap as well.
Interesting. Okay.
Ohio State, so it's not like you don't have to watch a big-time program. You don't have to find him on an obscure channel.
Right. Yeah, I think I can find Ohio State somewhere.
Yeah, I like Justin Fields. I like Trevor Lawrence better than Burrow, better than Tagovailoa. But like you said, as a guy, who could be an alternative, Justin Fields could be that guy next year for sure. Also, I say as a caveat, the Chargers made that same, decision in their mind, and so did the Redskins. They traded up to get that number 2 pick and took Robert Griffin III. So,
yep.
There's always that caveat emptor when thinking that you can take the next guy and still be just as successful.